Having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Porchlight Letters podcast number 2228. Little wins, big momentum. Yes, it has been an awesome day today. But first, I suddenly realized that today, one of them I'd already done because I sent the wishes early. So I've got a niece whose birthday is today. So happy birthday. She knows who she is. She's already had her message. It was also 8 years ago today that Gus crossed the Rainbow Bridge. And those that don't know Gus, he was our dog. He was around 114 pounds. Although when he passed, he was probably closer to 100, maybe into 19. We weren't exactly sure at that point. But we called him the dog with 1,001 faces because you could have an entire conversation with Gus based on his facial expressions. He was part German Shepherd, part Bernese Mountain Dog, and part something else. We think Great Dane, we're not sure. All I know is that his paw was the size of my palm. That's the bit that went on the bit that actually touched the floor when he put his foot down. It was the size of my palm. That's how big he was. And so it was hard to do because Brad was in hospital at the time, and he had a couple of weeks before we had him into the vet because he wasn't doing very well. And we actually go back a little further. We actually got clearance to take him into the hospital to see Brad. So we were super excited. The day arrived, we got a phone call from Brad to say, you can't bring Gus in today. And I'm like, what do you mean? I said, he's had a bath yesterday. He's looking all fresh. He's got his bandana on. He's looking very handsome. He's super excited to come see you. He was waiting by the door when I got up this morning, and I told him I had to have breakfast first. He went, which he often did when he got annoyed with us. If we didn't do what he wanted to do there, and then he'd go, and of course his cheeks would go flutter. And Brad said they changed me rooms. They put me in a completely different part of the hospital, so we now have to go through the process all over again. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So then I had to turn around to Gus, and that was a Friday. I had to turn around to him and say, hey, we can't take you to see Dad today, and this is why. He just put his heads down between his paws, and I have to tell you, that was the saddest puppy dog look I had ever seen on his face. He was so disappointed. After that, his health went downhill, and less than 2 weeks later, I walked out on the 6th of September that morning and took one look at Gus and picked up the phone and called Brad and said it's time. We'd had Gus to the vet during the week, that last week, and they found a cyst in his chest cavity. You could feel it, and they said, okay, this is the type of cyst that where it is, you have to keep Gus calm. You can't get him excited. You have to keep him calm. He can't go into any activities or anything else. You got to keep him quiet. And I'm just like looking at them. You want me to keep this one quiet? Kind of like Zeffy, a lot of energy. But Gus had kind of slowed down a bit. He was 13 and a half. And so I said to the vet, you want me to keep him quiet? And he could still jump in and out of Brad's Yukon. He had no problem doing that. He was 13 and a half. He could still jump in and out of the Yukon. And the vet went, yeah, but if you don't keep him quiet, especially if he gets stressed or overexcited, that cyst could burst and kill him. I'm like, great. So I came out it was a Wednesday morning. I came out that Wednesday morning on the 6th of September, 2017, and Gus just gives me this look. And I knew in my heart he was telling me to let him go. So I called Brad to let him know what had happened, and Brad was sort of like, okay, get somebody that comes to the house. Because with our previous dog, Bear, we took him into the vets, and the vet wouldn't let us back to be with Bear when he crossed. It turned out they didn't do him till the end of the day because the staff at the vet's office wanted to say goodbye. And I felt like we were robbed of that opportunity to be there with Bear during his last moments. And it just wasn't fair. I didn't feel it was fair. It still irks me to this day when that happened, and that was 2004. So we found a vet that would come to the house. They arranged the time to come up. I had a friend from LA, Amy, who called me and found out what was happening and said, would you like me to come down? My initial reaction was to say no, but my brain said, wait, she is offering to help, accept the help. So I said, yes, that would be lovely. Thank you. So she jumped in the car and drove down. By the time she got there, Gus had gone. He was sitting on the gurney. The vet had wrapped him beautifully in this gurney and just had the headpiece open, ready to fold that over when she arrived. So she was able to meet Gus for the first time. And then we helped the vet get Gus's body out onto the back of her truck and locked in place. And then she took him off, and she said his ashes will be here. It would take about 4 weeks. So like, that's fine. 2 weeks later, we got his ashes. And Brad was home for that. So he's still missed. He was a source of great entertainment. He absolutely loved our oldest grandson, Darmic. Darmic loved Gus. We'd be driving to the house, and Darmic in the back would start kicking his feet, and just after he learned how to talk was going, Gus, Papa, Papa, Gus, and his little hands were going and his feet were going, and it was just absolutely magical to see the bond between them. I have a couple of really cool photographs of Darmic with Gus, and one of them is that Darmic sitting in front of Gus, and their noses are together, and Gus is like leaning forward to give them kisses. And another one, Gus was laying on the floor there with his head up, and Darmic was kind of leaning against his hindquarters. And then there's another one where we had these low windows, and he looked out the front windows, and there was a guy in a cherry picker, because we were up on top of the hill. So there's a guy in a cherry picker, and they were trimming the tree next door. And I got this picture from the back. Darmic's arm is over Gus's body, and the two of them are just standing there watching the guy in the cherry picker. It's absolutely cool. I mean, they had such a special bond, and Darmic had a very special bond with his grandfather as well. So that's what happened on this day. In New Zealand today, it is, because they are on Sunday, they're a day ahead. So in New Zealand today, it's actually Father's Day. I believe tomorrow here in the US is going to be Grandparents' Day. So tomorrow is Father's Day in New Zealand. So I had to pause. So I was on late because I had to pause, because I got a text message from Mum, and she reminded me it was Father's Day in New Zealand, because I had totally forgotten that. And so I sent her a quick text message. So I had to reply back to her as well. While I was replying, FedEx turned up. Now, FedEx was supposed to be here yesterday to deliver my package between 12:30 and 2:30. That's what they told me. At 6 o'clock, it said, we will update you when your package starts to move. Okay. This morning, I got a message saying, we're going to be delivering your package between 10:30 and 2:30 today. I was like, yay. It arrived at 6 o'clock. But my package is here. So I had to go grab that from outside. It did have some stuff that's kind of a little heat sensitive in there, but, So that's why I was like, there's all this stuff going on, and all these memories and stuff coming back as well. And of course, thinking of Gus made me think of Zeffy, and that would set me off again. But tonight, we're going to talk about the major part of today, which has been absolutely amazing. So tonight we're talking about, where did my notes go? Nope, that's not the right, hang on. There it is. Little wins, big momentum. So every Saturday morning, unless I have a mastermind group on, I have a collaboration partner that I meet with, and we are in the process of setting some really cool stuff up. And so we got together this morning, and we had one of the most productive sessions that we've ever had. And there was a lot of laughter in there, as well as different ideas were going. And she said I'd written down a word in my notebook, and I looked at it, and then told her what the word was. She repeated it to me, and I suddenly had this image in my head, and I just started laughing. So I had to share it with her. Then she started laughing. But this was just a small thing. It's sort of like, oh my gosh, we can do this. And then later on, after we finished our conversation, later on during the day, she sent me a message saying, hey, because I'd sent her a picture of what I had, of kind of what I had in mind when we said this word, or that got inspired by this word earlier. And she says, oh, that would be great. We could do blah, 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 and then rattled off all these ideas that we could do with this thing. And so I got into my Mailbox Power account and thought, I'm going to do this. So did a couple of things in Mailbox Power, sent some stuff off to her, sent some stuff off to me, so we can both match and that sort of stuff. But we had such a productive day. And sometimes progress isn't measured in leaps and bounds, but in small, steady steps. And we did a lot of small steps today. We know what we have to do. We know what we've got in place. We know what we kind of know what we have to do. So between the two of us, we've worked out what we've got to do this week, because we want to get this thing up and going really, really fast. And we might have been a brainstorming breakthrough. We did a lot of brainstorming this morning. It was awesome. And even throughout the day, we've been sending stuff each backwards and forwards with each other. I got a whole bunch of stuff done on a client's project that they wanted done. And I also tackled some sorting as well. And I will tell you this, one of my major wins today, it's not a little win, it was a major win. I have not needed a nap today. And I'm just sort of like, that's really unusual, because usually like around 10 o'clock, I'm sort of like, I need to go lay down. Or I get to 3 o'clock, I got to go lay down. I have not had any issues with that at all today. I guess it's because my brain, it wasn't on work stuff as I normally work throughout the week. I wasn't in a schedule like I normally am during the week. I was on free time today. I could do a little bit here, a little bit there. I now have this massive box, which is about this square and about this tall, that is full of journals. It is almost to the point of being completely full. And then I walked into another room, opened a box, and there were more journals in there. And I was like, oh me, oh my. And I know that I have some in my closet as well. And so I was sort of like, yeah, there's going to be maybe about 3 or 4 boxes of journals coming to New Zealand with me. And somebody's sort of like, all those journals. I went, yeah, I got to take them. I can't leave the journal. Like as I'm walking around the house, I'm finding more journals. I've got 2 sitting here on I've got 3 sitting on my desk, 4 sitting on my desk. Is that all I have? Yeah, there's 4 sitting on my desk. There's 5 in the crate at my feet, which is like a filing system. There's going to be a lot, and I have to figure out which ones I need to take with me on the plane down to New Zealand when I go, because they're the current ones that I'm working from. So, but the cool part is that, the brainstorming session, working on a client's project, tackling some of the sorting and stuff, each of those were little wins that matters. And then, of course, having the big one of me not needing a nap. Like, there was at no point was I sort of like thinking, I think I'll go lay down. Should I go lay on the couch? Should I go lay on the bed? Didn't have to do any of that today. So tonight we're going to explore how small victories create the momentum that keeps us moving forward. And I will tell you, momentum often begins with the tiniest action taken consistently. Little wins build confidence, clarity, and energy. Progress doesn't have to look dramatic to be meaningful. Celebrating your wins creates motivation to keep going. And I'll tell you, the client's project I'm working on is a really fun project too. I might even get it finished tomorrow. And I'll get some more sorting done. I have to figure out I've got these boxes that I have to move out of the way so I can get the shredder out. The shredder's accessible, but the power cable is not. I want to reposition it where I can sit comfortably and just shred things while having some movie on or something. Multitasking, watch a movie, shred some paper. And I have to get it done by tomorrow night because the trash goes out tomorrow night. So I want it done so I can fill up the bin and all of that sort of thing. Oh, and I did. And so this week I've also had other little wins where I have booked my ticket back to New Zealand. I have booked the movers. I've got a niece's wedding coming up next month. Got the tickets booked for those. I've got the ticket booked for another event that's coming up in April of next year. So there was lots of little wins like that along the way today too. And I have them noted down in my journal as well as to what I did and that sort of thing. So this week has been a lot of little things happening, which has been awesome. Because those little steps are going to lead to big major things. What happens when you pause to acknowledge and appreciate what you've accomplished? You shift your focus from what's missing to what's moving. You're not looking over here going, oh, I really have to get that. Oh, God, there's another journal over there. Oh, there's another 2 down there. Oh, man. That's a travel journal. Where did that one go to? I think this is a travel one. Let me have a look and see. Travel journal. Pretty sure this is a travel one. Hang on. Let's have a look and see. Oh, this is from our very first cruise. Oh, wow. This is the journal from our very first cruise in September of 2009. In fact, we went over Labor weekend. I think it was September hang on, I just passed the itinerary. Go back to the itinerary, Helen. September 5th is the day that we departed from Seattle, which was yesterday. It was yesterday. And this was in 2009. So what's that? 24 year? No, hang on. 14 years? Oh, jeez, I can't remember math. 2009 to 2025. There's a 4 on the end. So anyway, yeah, so we did this on the 5th of September 2009 is when we departed from Seattle. We were on a balcony cabin 9012 forward, which meant that we were in the forward portion. And there was at one point, we were going through waves like this. It was awesome. I was loving it. And we couldn't open our balcony because the waves were coming up over the bow of the ship and soaking our balcony. And we were told, and everybody in balcony rooms were told to keep their doors closed. But we did Seattle. We cruised the Inside Passage. That was on Saturday we left. Sunday we cruised the Inside Passage, which was absolutely gorgeous and stunning and beautiful. Monday we were in Ketchikan. What do we do in Ketchikan? Oh, we took a bus trip that took us up to the national park where the totems are. And so we actually had a botanist with us. He was a professor at the local university. And during the off season, he played tour guide. So it was very interesting getting stuff from the perspective of a botanist. And at one point he goes, oh, he says, look, I've got to show you this. I have to show you this. Come here, gather around. So we all gathered around. And there was like probably about 15 of us on this bus trip. And it was to see eagles. And yeah, it was a pretty cool trip. It was a cool trip. And so he goes over and he walks into the off the main trail because we're in the bush, walks off the main trail, comes back. He's got this slug on his finger. He goes, this is called and it was yellow. And he calls it's called a banana slug. I'm like, oh, I thought, well, that's obvious because of the shape and the color. But as we're watching it, it starts turning pink. And what was happening is the slug was drawing the warmth out of his fingers into its body and it was changing color. And he said, now my finger feels very, very cold right now. He says, who would like to try this? And one of the women standing next to him goes, oh, I want to. So he puts it on the back of her hand. And she goes, my hand's getting really cold. And this yellow slug, I mean, it was about this long. This yellow slug starts turning pink. It was awesome. And that was as it warmed up, it turned pink. And as soon as he took it off, it started going back to yellow. It was really cool. But we went to that park. We saw lots of eagles, the bald eagle up there. He also took us to the sanctuary for bald eagles, and it was so heartbreaking to see these 2 bald eagles sitting on this log that was on the ground. They had lost their ability to fly. Above them was completely open. There was no cage, no nothing across the top of their enclosure because they couldn't fly. And you could see the way I interpret it, I looked at their eyes, and to me, I could see in their eyes that they're like wishing that they could fly up and out of this enclosure, but because of the damage to their wings, they couldn't fly. I'm not sure if it was permanent or if they were just there for recovery. I can't remember that bit. And then we went through there and we learned about the life of a salmon, and they do have a salmon hatchery there, but they consider it wild salmon still, even though the salmon are hatched in these different pools and are moved from different ponds to ponds. They have the ladder, what's called the ladder, which is them jumping up against the stream of the water out on a stream, and the salmon come up the creek bed into this pool thing, lay their eggs, go through the pools, and then go back out. They've got an area that they can go back out, and then the eggs are moved based on hatching and all of that, and the age of the eggs. They're then moved out, and then they're finally released into the wild. So that was kind of cool to see that. We also took us into a museum, and there were these really ancient totems. You can't call them totem poles because totem means pole. Otherwise, you're going pole. So anyway, so we saw these ancient totems, and they're like laying down, and they were pretty impressive. They'd lost all their coloring off them, but they were impressive. And at this national park, at the state park that had the totems, that we were learning about the different positions of the different characters on the totems. So that was pretty cool. The next day we were in Juneau, and we were only there for the morning. And somehow we got into, it's either the Red Dog or the Red Onion. It's got red in the title. It's either onion or dog. It's this pub in the center of thing. It's famous for whatever reason. I don't remember. And you can go, and it was a squash to get in there. And I was telling a friend of mine the other day about this, and I said, so I said, Brad, my husband was 6'5" at about 250, 300 pounds, somewhere around there. He was a big guy. And so he just basically just walked in and created a path to get through this thing, because he also had the height above everybody's heads where he could see what was going on. I just held onto his back, onto his belt at the back, and just walked in his stream. And we found a high top table to sit at. And I don't know how the wait staff do it in this place. The place is packed. It is wall to wall people. I am sure it is completely, well and truly double what the fire regulations are for how many people are allowed in that place. It's packed. When I went back there in May of 2018 by myself, I was walking down the street and I looked over, and there was like probably about 30 people outside trying to get in. And I'm like, you ain't going to get in. Meanwhile, people are inside trying to get out, and they're trying to get through these 20 to 30 people that were outside. And there was a guy at the back that was like literally pushing the people in front of him. I'm like, they're not going to get in. Yeah, I didn't have to repeat that experience. It was the burgers were pretty good. I will tell you that. Then we went up and saw Sawyer Glacier. Then we were in Skagway. Oh, I love Skagway. Skagway is such a cool town. With Ketchikan has this really cool history with Creek Street, which I learned the next time I was back there, because we were on this tour, so we didn't get to go and explore the town of Ketchikan. I did this time and absolutely fell in love with Ketchikan and its history and everything else. I got a lot of inspiration for my book series from there. And I in May of 2018, when I was on the ship, we ended up back in Seattle, and I booked a tour trip for around Seattle for the afternoon, since I couldn't check into my hotel at the time, and they dropped me off at my hotel, which was really even better. But we went to Pike's Place, and there was a woman there who was hand stitching together journals, and the journals pages were all handmade pages, and they were like about this thick, and they had cowhide on the outside. One was black, and it had a black and white button for the loop to go over. The other one was brown, and it had a brown strap that you'd wrap around it and then tuck it in to close it up. So they were all had like the piece that went around here, and then they had a flap that came over the front, and it either buttoned or you use this tie around it. And one of those is full of about 4 or 5 different beginnings for a book that starts in Skagway, starts in Ketchikan, and ends up being modern day. So there's one chapter history, one chapter present time, and it's going to go that way. So there's about 4 or 5 different starts in that book. But Skagway, love Skagway. It was really, really cool. We had a great time there. Did a great bus trip that took us up into the Yukon. We watched as you're walking down the main street of Skagway, it's got boardwalks and all that. You're coming down, and about halfway down on the right-hand side, there's this old Victorian house. And there's these women that are clad in their undergarments from the late 1800s, early 1900s. So they had the pantaloons on and all that sort of cool stuff. They're out there, come on in, trying to entice you to come in. And it was an audience participation telling of the story of Soapy Sam, who was kind of like the Al Capone of Skagway. And so when we're buying the tickets, this guy says, "Are you buying tickets?" We said, yes. He says, well, for an extra $10 per person, he says, we can give you a 2.5-hour bus trip at the end of it. You'll go up into the Yukon, come back down again. And so we said, sure, why not? There was like 12 of us on that we were on one of those little mini buses that seat like 20, and there was probably about 10 to 12 of us on that thing. And we had this really cool bus driver who took us up, and we're going up this valley, and it drops down and you can see the river down below, and on the other side of the train track, so we could see where the train went, and we were able to stop on this side, take pictures of waterfalls. We get up to the border, to the US-Canadian border. Think of a toll booth. There was a toll booth sitting by itself in the middle of nowhere. I kid you not. It was just a single toll booth in the middle of nowhere. It had an arm that came down on this side, an arm that came down on the other side. The road went either side of it. So I got the chinos. And it was just barren. There was a little bit of hills in the distance, but it was basically barren and nothing around. He had like no protection from any sunshine that came in or anything like that. But so and you could easily go off the road and drive around the barriers. It was that wide open. But the bus driver goes on up and says hi to the guy in the little booth, and he drives on through and he does this big U-turn and comes back the other side and then goes and parks over by this huge sign that says "Welcome to Alaska" on it. He played photographer for anybody that wanted to have their picture taken by the sign. Then we get back in the bus. Now, he could have just driven straight off and onto the road. We were already past the arm barrier. But no, we get back in. He turns us back around, gets us back on the road. We go to the arm barrier, wave to the guy. He lifts up the arm barrier, and off we go. Very interesting trip. And then they took us down to the cemetery. But by the time we got to the cemetery, we got to this one point where we had a massive view over Skagway. And you could see all the ships that were in port. And it was a fantastic view. You could see there was Skagway just laid down in front of you. And then then it started to rain, and then he took us over to the cemetery. And if you wanted to, you could go and see the grave of Soapy Sam. And I was like, I really don't want to. It's raining. I didn't feel like getting, as much as I love the rain, I didn't feel like getting wet. But this is my book. This is my journal from there. And in the front, I have everything about the ship. All the different restaurants are in here. If there's a surcharge, it's in there. I've got all the different things that you can do, like where the spa is, where the shopping is. What was Silver Cloud? Oh. And then in the back of this, I have all the little brochures and things like we did. Oops. This was our bonus bucks for on top of the ship. We were on Norwegian Star. Let's see, what's this? Oh, this was the pricing list for the spa, for the port days, for the ones we didn't go on. This was that was Brad's camera, first camera. There's Nikon facilities. Oh, that was from a duty-free shop that we went to somewhere along the way. Got little receipts here. This is, what is this one? Oh, Red Dog Saloon. That's the one that we went to, the Red Dog Saloon. And you couldn't see these swinging doors because people were trying to go in. But at the time, this is 2009, like Alaskan Amber was $6. I'm guessing this is for a pint. Alaskan White Ale was $6. Bud Light was $4.50. I don't know if those are good prices or not. Here are the menu inside. We swiped the menu. Can you tell? But it just opens up. And then it's got their gifts and souvenirs on there. I don't know. They have a motherload burger. Has 1/3 pound beef patty served with lettuce, tomato, pickles, and cheese on a Kaiser bun. And it comes with your choice of potato salad, coleslaw, or potato chips. And they were potato chips, not fries. Yes. So that was the menu from there. This was the whale watching adventure we did in Juneau. It was awesome. And we had to drive past the Mendenhall Glacier to get over to where we got the boats for that. We didn't do this. This is the train ride, but I got the brochure anyway because lots of people like the train. I didn't want to sit on a train for as long as you had to on this one. Where's Skagway? Oh, there's Skagway there. So on this, the train goes all the way up here. We were on the other side of the valley, and we went up to here, and then turned around and came back down again. It was a really cool. It was 2.5 hours. It was awesome with every penny. Shopping a shoreside for Juneau. Our shore excursion tickets. This was the whale watching adventure one. So was that one. That was for our whale watching that we did. Part of our thing was that we had credit towards things. We bought we're going to Alaska and we totally forgot about binoculars, so we bought some as we were boarding the ship. Cost us $120, which when we got back we found it was actually a pretty good price. So that was, that's our, there was our thing. The Nunavak and the Bristol Bay sandwich. Those are the 2 sandwiches we had. Brad had the root beer. I had a ginger ale. I'd have to go back and look to see what the menu was for those things. But that's my journal from our very first cruise that we got to do. And so there's that journal. That's going to go in the box. Although I'm probably going to put a rubber band about it to keep everything in there. Anyway, total sidetrack. Look at that. Total sidetrack. Where we are. What happens when you pause to acknowledge and appreciate what you've accomplished? You shift your focus from what's missing to what's moving. You allow small steps to carry you through big transitions. You begin trusting that the momentum builds when you nurture it. Absolutely. Take note of one small win from today and celebrate it. Oh, I have a ton of them. Honor your energy. Absolutely. I didn't have to take a nap today, and that to me is a huge breakthrough. Rest when needed. There was a couple of times I sat down and just read. Instead of doing a nap, I had reading time. So I would go and sit in the recliner here, put my feet up, and read a chapter from a book. Rest when needed, act when inspired, which is basically what I was doing all day. And I was in the rhythm of not having to think about anything. So when I was doing the sorting, it was not because I thought, oh my gosh, we're coming up. We've only got X number of weeks before we fly, and we've got the movers coming in on this date. We need to da-da-da-da. No, there was none of that. It was like, oh, let's put all of these into one box. Because I've told the movers with the amount of books that I have, as I'm sorting them, I am categorizing them into different boxes. And I want to know, do they just seal those boxes up, or do they have to repack them? How do they label them so I know that I get the right number of boxes down in New Zealand and all that sort of stuff? Keep showing up for yourself even when the results are quiet. Remember that steady progress creates lasting change. And on the Legacy Connection, when we celebrate small steps, we teach future generations that becoming isn't about rushing. It's about showing up again and again until the little things create something extraordinary. So here are your 4 reflection questions. Number 1, what small win from this week makes you feel proud? Every single one that I have had. The fact that I've got my tickets booked to New Zealand, I've got the movers booked, I've got flights booked to Colorado for my niece's wedding. I've got another event coming up next week. I've got the deposit paid on that. The breakthroughs that we had in our collaboration meeting today. Actually, I really should stop calling it collaboration. Let's call it a business meeting. We're in pre-launch mode right now. The amount of work I got done on a project for a client, and the amount of sorting I got done. So, lots of little things, all that up. Number 2, how do tiny actions create momentum in your life? Because sometimes, instead of trying to take big steps, if you take the small steps, everything's one step at a time, It doesn't have to be a big step. It can just be a small step. But the momentum picks up and starts going. Number 3, where can you focus on progress rather than perfection? We are perfectly imperfect. We will never be perfect. So don't even strive for perfection. Strive to be the best. That's how that song came up. Strive to be the best me that you can be. I said that last year around September, October, when I said the exact same thing. Just strive to be the best me that I can be. That's all I'm doing. And that's what started that whole thing with writing the song in a few days and then taking until July of this year to get music put to it. See, things come out. You never know where it's going to come from. Number 4, what one gentle step can you take tomorrow towards your bigger goals? And with that, we're out of here. Your closing thought tonight is little wins become big shifts when we allow them to gather momentum. We are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hey, konara.